Hello, I'm Paul Dowding, and this is your blockchain or distributed ledger due diligence question of the day. Today's question is, why is the CAP theorem important to your blockchain or distributed ledger? Now, the CAP theorem was originally presented as a conjecture by Eric Brewer in the year 2000. It was subsequently proven in 2012 formally as a theorem by Seth Gilbert and Nancy Lynch. So the CAP theorem is related to those initials CAP within a network. You can have consistency, where all the nodes have the same answer. You can have availability, so all the nodes are available. And then the P is the unfortunately named partition tolerance, which really means that if a node goes down in a network, the network can still continue. And therefore it is partition tolerant. That part of the network can go away and the network still functions. Now, the catch in the CAP theorem is that you can only have two of those possibilities. So obviously you want your network to be partition tolerant, meaning a node can go down and the rest will keep going. But then that leaves you with the choice of either consistency or availability being your choices, and you can't have both. In most blockchains, the preference is to go for the consistency, which is decided by a competition like mining or consensus and voting. And therefore, if a node is not available, the rest of the nodes can still vote, or the miners can still compete. And then later on, when the node comes back up again, it can recover the part of the ledger that it's missed since it's been down. So that's the normal state of affairs. Now, the reason why the CAP theorem is important as a due diligence question is because in many solutions, there's actually dedicated roles within these distributed ledgers. There are oracles or notaries, but the most sensitive are the ones which are the ordering services, what they call the federated or elected or just assigned ordering services to create the blocks for all the other nodes to then vote on. The problem is those nodes become a single point of failure. Therefore, the network becomes partition intolerant, because if the ordering service goes down, there are no longer blocks to be voted upon. Also, the loss of partition tolerance doesn't necessarily guarantee that the network can now be fully available and consistent, because that's dependent on the nodes. And if they have nothing left to vote on, then they may be consistent, but they're not actually progressing with the ledger. So these services that exist usually have in place a mechanism to utilize multiple services, and they sometimes can be randomly selected. So if one of them goes down, there is the opportunity to elect or select another provider, but this adds some arbitrary latency to the process and also introduces what I call the Monty Python effect, because as an ordering service goes down, there'll be a certain period of time where the network now decides it needs to elect or assign a new service provider, and the old one wakes up and says, I'm not dead yet, and then keeps trying to go. Now, across the network, there's latency of communication, so you can end up with two ordering services trying to compete with each other and then arguing over who's actually in charge. Therefore, the reason for incorporating the CAP theorem in your blockchain or distributed ledger technology due diligence is to root out how do those solutions cope with the partition intolerance of these dedicated service providers, because they can cause a great deal of problems and latency and reliability down the track if you don't understand what the recovery processes are. And I believe the recovery processes are problematic on their own. But again, you need to look at this when considering these types of service. And the most well-known versions of these protocols are Paxos and Raft, although, as I said, other services use oracles and notaries or ordering services. So you should be cautious if you see any of those mentioned in the designs. So thank you for watching. I hope this is useful, and I'll be coming back in other days with other blockchain or distributed ledger due diligence questions. If you now have any other questions or comments or areas you'd like me to cover, please leave your comments in the comments below. Thank you.